Today, I'm gonna give you 3 sewing tips for sewing stretchy fabric to woven fabric. So we're gonna take a fabric that stretches a lot and we're gonna sew it to a fabric that doesn't stretch at all. You might be wondering, why do I wanna do this? Well, sometimes you're gonna fall in love with this beautiful knit fabric, and then you find this woven fabric and you love it, and you have to make a collar or a sleeve to go with this dress or this outfit that you're creating, and everything can go wrong when you want to sew a knit to a woven. So today I'm going to give you 3 tips for making sure this happens successfully for you. A lot of times this can go terribly wrong if you think you're just going to sew this together like normal, because you can't. So come on, let's explore 3 ways we can do this better. But first, let's sew these 2 together like normal so you can see how bad this can really go. So I have an orange jersey knit and I have a chambray cotton and pink here, and I'm gonna lay them on top of each other. And I'm just gonna sew a plain seam so that way we can see what's going to happen. I'm gonna add my back stitches. I'm gonna do everything like normal. And you're gonna notice that the fabric on top is going to start to stretch out. So you can see what happened. It stretched out our knit and then it pulled it, so then it made our woven layer kind of gather up, and we've got all of this extra knit down here at the bottom. So if we open up the seam, you can see it's very wobbly and it's very bubbly. Let's turn that over and take a look at that so you can see what it's doing to the woven fabric here, and then you can see what it's doing here to the knit fabric. This looks terrible, and this is why you need the tips I'm about to show you. And the last tip is going to be something you probably haven't even thought of before. Tip number 1 is using a walking foot. This is going to create even pressure on the top and the bottom of your fabric when it pulls through the machine. My machine is a built-in walking foot, but if you buy a separate one for your machine, it's going to look something like this. So you're going to attach this foot to your machine, and what it's going to do, it's going to help evenly feed the fabric through. So you're going to notice it basically has feed dog right here under the bottom of the foot. So what happens is the top clamps on with the bottom feed dog and it pulls the fabric through evenly. So right now, because the machine only has feed dog on the bottom, it's only pulling it and gripping it on the bottom. But with the walking foot, we get a double grip. That helps to prevent that top fabric from stretching out. And when we use the walking foot, we're using a straight stitch. Even though we have a knit with a woven, it's because once we stitch into the woven, that knit is not going to move anyhow. So you don't need to use any special stretch stitches. You just need to use your woven stitch, which is the straight stitch. So let's check out how different the seam's gonna look when we use a walking foot. My machine has this dual feed foot here, so I'm going to engage it, I'm going to pull it down and snap it into place. Now this does the same thing as the walking foot. So if you don't have the dual feed, just put on your walking foot. So I have all my settings like normal, and I have a straight stitch set to 2.5. And I'm going to create my back stitch in the beginning, and I'm just going to run this through like normal. And you can see that dual feed foot helping the fabric along, helping keep it even. Back stitch at the end and cut. Look at how nice and flat the seam is. We've got that stretchy jersey with that woven chambray, and when we pull this back, you can see we have a nice smooth seam. Let's flip it over so we can see the woven side, and again, no bubbling or puckering. And let's compare that to the other one that we sewed without it. You can see such a difference here on the woven fabrics, and then if we flip it over for you to see the jerseys, look at that. What a difference. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel so much. And if you want to improve your sewing skills, make sure you check out the SewAnastasiaSewingAcademy.com. I now have online courses. So cool, right? Check out Sewing 101, Pattern of the Month, and our virtual sewing circle. Links are down below. And there's more courses coming soon. So let's say you don't have a walking foot. What are you going to do? You need to finish this project right now, right? Well, I'm going to show you how to ease the fabric into the other one. So when garments are manufactured, you're not going to see them switching to a walking foot on an industrial sewing machine. They're not going to put this thin fabric into an industrial walking foot machine. They are going to control the fabric with their hands. They're going to use a technique called easing. Let me show you what that means. So when you're trying to get a piece of fabric that's going to stretch, like this orange jersey, into a flat piece of fabric that's not going to stretch, like my pink chambray, we're going to put the stretchy fabric on the bottom. So the stretchy fabric is going to be in contact with the feed dog. And while we're sewing this, we are going to be holding the top layer. So you're going to be holding the top layer, the woven fabric, more than you are the bottom fabric. And then the bottom fabric is going to gradually work its way into fitting into the woven fabric. And to make sure you get all of your ease here spaced out appropriately, you can always put some pins in here so that way you don't pull too much ease. Now this technique takes some getting used to, but try it on some sample pieces of fabric first before you move on to your actual garment. And once you get the hang of it, you're gonna love it. So when I start out, I'm going to start out like normal, just getting a few back stitches in my project to secure it. Now when I'm sewing, I just have to make sure my fabrics aren't stretching out. And if I notice them stretching out, what I need to do is hold that top layer more than the bottom layer, and then it's going to ease into it. So I'm going to hold that top layer and make sure the orange fabric is getting sucked up into it with those feed dog down there. So those feed dog are pulling it into that top fabric by holding it. You get to the bottom, back stitch, and cut. Look at how nice and flat the jersey is on this, and when we flip it over, look at that woven. It is nice and flat. And if you don't have a walking foot, really try out easing. Easing is a great technique to master. You're going to be using it when you put it in sleeves, when you're sewing princess lines, any curved areas in a pattern. Easing is a great technique to get a few pieces of fabric to match up just how you want them to. My third tip is cutting a 1/2 inch wide strip of fusible interfacing. We're going to fuse it to the wrong side of the stretchy fabric. And what this is going to do is it's going to make the stretchy fabric nice and stable, so that way it's like a woven fabric when we sew it to the woven fabric. It's going to sew up beautifully. It's also going to help flatten out the knit. So jersey fabric, when you cut into it, naturally just wants to roll and do this. It can be kind of frustrating to work with. So let's flip it over to the wrong side. And then what we're going to do is carefully line up the edge of the interfacing with the edge of the fabric, and then we're going to go fuse this down. Okay, let's iron this down. We're gonna make sure that the bumpy side of the interfacing is on the wrong side of the fabric, because that bumpy side is the glue. I've got my muslin down on the ironing board so I don't get any interfacing on it. And now we are going to press that down. There we go. Normally I'd put a piece of muslin on top, but I really wanted you to see that. All right, now we're ready to sew this to the woven. So I have my fusible side face up so that way you can see it, and I've got my woven fabric on the bottom. You could flip it either way though, because it's like we're sewing two wovens together. So we're just gonna treat it like normal, back stitch in the beginning, and sew it together. When you get to the bottom, back stitch and cut. So you can see how nice and flat the knit looks, and then our woven on the back is nice and flat as well. And when we open it up, you can see how nice and flat that seam as well. The orange one with the interfacing is bubbling up a little, but we'll just iron it down and it'll be nice and flat. So let's check out everything we've done. So this one down here is that first sample we did where we did not apply any of those techniques to it. You can see it's very bumpy and wavy, does not lay flat. And then we have our other techniques up here. This one here was the interfacing, nice and flat in the seam after I pressed it. And then these two, I'm not sure which one's which because, well, they both look great. One of them's the walking foot and one of them is easing. So next time you need to sew a woven to a knit, make sure you reference this video and try out one of the techniques. And if you have any questions about these techniques, leave it down below in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks so much for watching today. Let me know what video you'd like to see next down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and don't forget to subscribe to Sew Anastasia and hit that notification bell so you know when the new videos come out. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching today. And don't forget, you can come take sewing classes in my design studio with me. You can find a link for that down below in the description. And if you're not in Chicago, well, that's okay. We now have the SewingAnastasiaSewingAcademy.com, where you can take online classes, join the Pattern of the Month Club, and the virtual sewing circle. So check that out down below in the description. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all the socials. That way we can stay connected and creative together. Thanks so much for watching today. Bye.